Hi there. Today we're going to be looking at using Scratch to teach math concepts. So first you go to scratch.mit.edu. And when you're first setting up a class, you want to have your students join Scratch. To join Scratch, you just need a username, a password, age, and email. At your account, so I'm going to sign in. So one of the cool things you can do to kind of keep a class with Scratch is you can go into My Stuff and you can create a new studio. And the new studio allows you to basically share all your work with the other students. So here is one of the studios that I had in the previous class. And this is all the different stuff that our students were able to code. One of the first projects you want to do with Scratch, so I'm going to go back to My Stuff, and I'm going to make a new project, is just learning how to move around the screen. So to move around the screen, all you really need to introduce students to are two blocks. The first one is the event blocks, and it's basically like when you want something to happen. So we want them to move right. So when space key is pressed, do we want to move right when the space key is pressed? No, we want to move right when the right arrow is pressed. And so those are events, and then we also introduce them to movement. So movement, we're going to just teach them two blocks right now. It's going to be change X by and change Y by, right? So X you want to teach them is, horizontal movement, and Y is vertical. And they'll be able to become a little bit more fluent with this the longer that you work with them through Scratch. We just built our first little bit of code. So when the right arrow is pressed, change X by 10. So I'm going to press the right arrow, right, and look, he moves to the right. And you can even look at the X, Y here, and you can make that a whole concept. Like students, what happens when I move them here? Well, X doesn't change very much, but Y changed a whole bunch. What about down here? Oh, Y is negative. That's interesting. So you can kind of use just moving the character around to teach that same basic coordinate concept by playing instead of just direct instruction. And so now by this time, the kids are going to want it to move left. So they're going to intuitively go back, add when left arrow is pressed. And generally the first thing students do is they'll change X by 10 again. So if I do that, he still moves to the right. So you kind of want to let them grapple with this for a little bit, but eventually, if they're still not getting it, you want to just introduce negative 10. By this time, hey, look, he moves left when I press left, right when I press right. From then, students are going to want to have him move up and down. So let's go ahead and build those. So events, I'm just going to drag both of these out here. 1, 2, we're going to do up arrow, down arrow. So now another common bug or mistake is they'll go straight to X again. And they'll be confused because it's moving. I press the up arrow and he moves to the right. And you kind of remind them, hey, we learned X and then there's this other one, Y, right? And so we're going to change Y. We're going to change Y. And so make this a negative because we want him moving down. And so now when we press the left arrow, he moves left. The up arrow, he moves up. The right arrow, he moves right. And the down arrow, he moves down. So this is our first basic program that I build with students to kind of teach them the basics of coordinate. So once you give your students the basic tools for movement, you can start adding tools to their toolbox, right? So another fun one we like to add is we can go into looks and we can click next costume. And one of the things you want to impress upon your students is that you can have them play around with this actually. Does it matter where I put this one? Maybe in this code it doesn't, but for some of the codes it does matter the order that you put everything in. So now when we're moving, it's kind of skipping along a little bit, right? Moving up and down. From here we can even add another tool and start teaching them about direction and angles. And so we can have, right now you see that his direction is pointing at 90. So that's facing 90 degrees. And if we click on that, it even shows which direction he's facing. But let's say we want him to point the other way when we go left, right? So let's add that to ours. Let's clean that up. We don't want him facing 90 degrees. We want him facing negative 90 degrees, right? So now if I do this, watch what happens. He'd be going upside down. But now, look, he's only facing that direction. So we can have them when the right arrow is pressed, he points in the 90-degree direction. So now we've got him facing two ways. And originally, that's the bug that you're going to encounter. So he turns upside down when he turns left. And the way that you fix that is you go to direction, and you just have it mirror left-right instead of go up the full 360. So now he's facing this way, he can skip this way, he can skip this way, he can go up, he can go down. And just keep adding things to their toolbox. So you can eventually, let's see, it's not showing for some reason here, but you can change the background. right? And so you can add the background. I'm going to have a surprise background. It looks like it shows that place. Very cool. So now, let's go back to our sprite. Now he's playing in soccer field. And so you can start to see how you can just build more and more onto it. So to wrap this all up and kind of turn our code into more of a game, we're going to need another character. So we would choose a sprite, which is their Scratch's word for characters. And I'm going to choose the apple. And so what I want to happen is whenever this apple is touched by my character, it finds a new location. So it kind of jumps around the screen as he touches it. And this would allow us to start introducing new things, like the control things, which are our loops. So let's start with the event when green flag is clicked, and then we can go over to the loops, and we can teach them like the forever loop. So I want whatever code I put in here to happen as long as the game is running. And then we can teach them to conditionals. So if something is happening, then run this code and do that code forever. And finally, we can introduce them to sensing. So for sensing, you can have there's this touching block, and you can say if it's touching mouse pointer, so you can make a mouse pointer game. So for the purposes of this game, we're going to choose sprite 1. And then all we have to do is put inside here a motion block to have it move to a random location. So we could just easily put go to random position, and that would serve its purpose. But instead, you want to teach your codes the concepts of coding. So since we've already learned about coordinate planes, they can start to go to x blank, y blank. And you can introduce them to operators, which has a random block, and you can have it make your own random. So this goes, let's see, so look over at the x, y. So y goes about 140 to negative 140. X goes 216 to 234. So x is actually bigger than y. So we're going to go back to the code on our apple, and let's do negative 230, 230, negative 140, 140. And then we're going to click the green flag, and let's test if our game works. So I'm going to run over to get the apple, and he gets the apple, and it goes somewhere else. Then he runs over to get the apple, and so this is the beginnings of our new game. From then on, you can start introducing them to variables to see how many times the apple gets touched, and you can keep just building on the student's knowledge and toolbox from there. Thank you for your time.